Hello YouTube, welcome to today's English video. So today we are going to be writing our stories that you have planned this week. So I can't wait to read them. Once you have finished them, you can email them in to the Almond class email address if you are in my class, or the Hawthorn class email address if you are in Miss Meikle's class, because we would love to see your lovely writing. So for today you will need your story mountain that you completed on Monday and your character profiles that you completed yesterday. So make sure you've got all of those ready. You can pause the video while you do that and then we can get started. So this is the first sheet that you will need to look at. Yours won't look like mine because yours will have pictures in every section with maybe some adjectives or just some labels to remind you of all the different parts of your story. So the first part we are going to write is the beginning of your story. Now, the very beginning of the story is the most important part, because if the beginning isn't interesting, then nobody will bother to read the rest. So let's first of all think about the very first line. Okay, so if you think your story is going to be a little bit like a fairy tale, you could maybe start with once upon a time. And I know lots of you, sometimes when you write this, you write upon a as all one word, but we've got 4 separate words here, once upon a time. So if that's how you would like to start your story, you could, especially if you think it might be a little bit fairy tale-ish. You might start your story with one something day. You'll need to put an adjective in here to describe the day. One stormy day, one mysterious day, one bright day. You can think about an adjective that could go in here. Maybe your story is set long ago in the past. So you might start with long ago. Maybe your story is set in the future. So you could start with the exact year in the future that your story starts. You might want to start with last, maybe last week, last Wednesday at 4 o'clock precisely, or last year. So these are all some ways you could start your story. You could try to start your story with a question. Maybe you want to draw your reader in by asking them a question. Have you ever wanted to find out about the mysterious something? Or have you ever wondered what happened when? So those are some ideas to start your story. I would like you to pause the video now and write your first sentence. Off you go. Welcome back. So you should now have your first sentence. So now we can carry on thinking about the first section of our story. So this is the beginning, the introduction. So we need to introduce the characters and we need to introduce the setting. So the first thing to do is talk about your characters. So have a little look at your sheet from yesterday that looks like this. Look at all the things you wrote about their appearance and about their personality, and just choose a few of these to write down to introduce your characters. Don't include all of them, because some of them you might just be able to drop into your story later on as you go through. But think of a few key points. What does the reader need to know about your character right at the very beginning? So pause the video and write that part now. Okay, welcome back. So you've written your first sentence, you've described your characters a little bit. Now we need to set the scene. Where is your character? So you need to write a few sentences about where your character is and how is this going to link into the rest of your story. So pause the video and write that now. The next section that you need to write is your build-up. So think about what is going to happen here. This is really the first part where action starts happening in your story. What are your characters going to start doing before the really exciting thing happens, because that bit will be the dilemma. So this bit is all about them going somewhere, maybe traveling somewhere to the place where the dilemma is going to happen. These are some of the things that you might want to think about to include in this section. So you might want to use some interesting verbs. So instead of just they went somewhere, how did they go? Think about some different words like they tiptoed, or they drove, or they wandered. You can think of all sorts of words to describe how characters got from one place to another. Or you could think about verbs that you could use instead of the word see. Maybe they spotted, they noticed, just to make your writing a little bit more interesting. And you know that I am always looking for conjunctions in your writing, so you can definitely include some of those. You know, you can use because, when, if, and, that. They are all words that can extend your sentences. So why are your characters going to a certain place? When did they go? If they did something, what else happened? Think about how you can make those sentences a bit longer. And finally, for this section, you really need to think about some adjectives to describe the different things, because that just makes your writing a little bit more interesting. So pause the video now and write your build-up. You will probably write about 3 or 4 sentences for this section. Off you go. Okay, welcome back. So now you have written your beginning, you've written your build-up. So now we are on to the main event, your dilemma. This is where all the drama happens. This is the most exciting part of your story. So whatever you have drawn in this part of your story mountain is the exciting part. The part where something goes missing, the part where someone loses something, the part where the main adventure happens. So let's have a little look at some things that you might want to include in this section. So an exclamation sentence could go in this sentence, in this part of your story, to make the reader realise that it is really exciting. So we know exclamation sentences always start with the word what or the word how. So you might say something like, what a there was, or how they were. And you can fill in these gaps with whatever you need to make it make sense in your story. Of course, you can always keep thinking about the things we spoke about in the last section. Always use conjunctions to extend your sentences. Okay, so pause the video and write your dilemma now. Again, you will probably want 3 or 4 sentences to explain what is happening in lots of detail. And if you want to write more, that is absolutely fine. Off you go. So now we are on to the 4th section of our story. So this is the resolution. That means, how does the dilemma get sorted out? How does it get resolved? So you need to think about what happened here and think about what's going to happen here to solve this. So you can look at whatever you drew here to help you on Monday. I wonder, it might be if something was stolen here, then it's going to be recovered here. It's going to be found. Maybe the person who stole it is going to be found out. Maybe somebody needs rescuing. Maybe your dilemma was that somebody got into some kind of trouble. Maybe they were hurt and here they need rescuing. Maybe something was lost here and then somebody finds it here in your resolution. So you will write whatever you drew here on Monday. So let's have a little look at some things that we could include in our writing for this section. You might want to include a little bit more about your characters. If you think back to your character pictures that you did on Tuesday, you wrote lots of information and you might not have included all of that in your writing so far. So what is it about your character that made them do whatever they've done in the resolution? What was it that made them find something? What was it that made them give themselves up? What was it that made them help the people who were in trouble? And these are some words that you might want to use at the start of some of your sentences, because these are all words that kind of tell us that something might have been resolved. So we might have luckily, so maybe a good thing has happened, or maybe it's unfortunately, maybe it hasn't been completely sorted out, maybe part of it has been, but unfortunately something is lost forever. Who knows? You could start your sentence with when. When something happened, then something else happened. And that could help you to start some of these sentences. So use your plan and write your resolution. Again, a few sentences to really explain what has happened. And conjunctions are always super to extend your sentences and add more detail. So pause the video and do that now. Welcome back. So we are now ready for the final part of our story. You've done the beginning, the build-up, the dilemma, you have just written your resolution, and now we need to end the story. And sometimes the very end is the hardest part to write, because you don't just want your story to end too quickly, but you also need to wrap it all up so the person who's reading it realises that this is the end of the story. So here are some things that you could include to help you. You might want to use some time adverbs like these. In the end, eventually, finally, after a long while, because those words all give us a clue that this is coming to an end. This is lots of things have happened, and now this is the end of the story. It's also a good idea to include feelings at the end of the story. How do your characters feel now? And how have their feelings changed throughout the story? And it's always a good idea to give a reason for their feelings. So you could use the word because. They are now feeling like this because, and give the reason why. Or you might want to use the word so. Your character is feeling like this, so they are going to do something differently in the future. Maybe if your main character was the character who did something wrong, how are they going to change their ways in the future? Or if your character was maybe somebody who wasn't very careful, maybe they were a bit careless earlier in your story, how are they going to be more careful in the future to make sure that they don't get into trouble? So those are the sorts of things that you can include in the ending of your story. You probably won't write quite so much here, maybe just 1 or 2 sentences to finish it off. If you want to write more, that is fine, but just try not to make it too long and waffly. You want to make it a nice ending to your story so it all sums it up nicely. So pause the video and off you go. So that's it for today. I hope you have done a fantastic piece of writing. And as I said at the beginning, you can email them in so we can have a little look. Bye!